Hello everyone, this is Marianne O'Brien, your instructor for the class of Labor Relations in the Public Sector. For Module 2, Collective Bargaining, I have selected a set of readings that will be used in the discussion boards, the class exercise number 1 and quiz number 2. This video introduces the topic of collective bargaining and provides instruction for the class exercise number 1. The bargaining process. The difference between collective bargaining in the private and public sector are overstated. However, there are important differences in the process of collective bargaining based on the political, economic, and legal environment and the parties involved. We should remember that the regulatory agencies for labor relations in the public sector is the Federal Labor Relations Authority, FLRA, and for the private sector, National Labor Relations Board, NLRB. In addition, the financial settings difference among these two sectors can be found. For instance, private organizations are created to generate profit, while public agencies' motive is service delivery. Private corporations respond to market laws, whereas public organizations respond to public scrutiny and accountability. When businesses are not profitable, they can close their doors. However, government offices cannot go out of business. In some cases, municipalities may file bankruptcy under Chapter 9 of the Federal Code. The nature of the work also is different between these two sectors. While private organizations compete openly, in government, services tend to be monopolistic. Government agencies don't get to choose what locations are more profitable. They are created to provide services, period. Finally, the role of politics makes a big difference between these two sectors. Although by nature, collective bargaining in both the private and the public sector is a process infused by politics, the big difference is that government agencies must be responsive to citizens' needs. These characteristics are especially sensitive towards the possibility of strikes in the public sector. The parties in collective bargaining. Both in the private and public sector, in labor relations there are two parties: the labor, formed by employees and workers, and the management, which includes supervisor positions as well. On the labor side, we find the union leadership, the bargaining representatives, and the rank and file. On the management's side, there are labor relations specialists and negotiators. These professionals can be members of the organization or external consultants. The difference on labor relations in the private and public sector resides in that private organizations have clear roles. In government, because of the separation of powers, the system of checks and balance, and the different levels of government, such as federal, state, and local levels, and the merit system, complicate the definition of management authority. The elements of collective bargaining. Let's start by studying the process. Number 1, we first have to determine the unit of representation. We have to conduct a representation election or show of majority support. Then, that bargaining representative needs to be certificated. And finally, the negotiating contract phase. In this video, we are going to review only the first 3 steps. So, how do we determine what bargaining unit will represent a certain group of employees? An agency shall accord exclusive recognition to a labor organization if the organization has been selected as the representative in a secret ballot election by a majority of the employees in an appropriate unit who cast valid ballots in the election. In the case of an appropriate unit for which there is no exclusive representative, that 30% of the employees in the appropriate unit wish to be represented for the purpose of collective bargaining by an exclusive representative. Also, in the case of an appropriate unit for which there is an exclusive representative, that 30% of the employees in the unit allege that the exclusive representative is no longer the representative of the majority of the employees in the unit. The authority investigates the petition, and if it has reasonable cause to believe that a question of representation exists, it shall provide an opportunity for a hearing for which a transcript shall be kept. After a reasonable notice, the authority shall determine who is eligible to vote in an election under this section and shall establish rules governing any such election, which shall include rules allowing employees eligible to vote the opportunity to choose from a labor organization on the ballot or to choose not to be represented. In any election in which no choice on the ballot receives a majority of the votes cast, a runoff election shall be conducted between the two choices receiving the highest numbers of votes. The authority determines the appropriateness of any unit. Two or more units which are in an agency or for which a labor organization is the exclusive representative may, upon petition by the agency or labor organization, be consolidated with or without an election in a single larger unit if the authority considers the larger unit to be appropriate. The certification of representative is the formal document issued by a regional director that certifies that a labor organization has been selected as exclusive representative by a majority of employees in an appropriate unit who cast valid ballots in a secret ballot election. Once a labor organization is certified, the Federal Service Labor Management Relation Statute requires an agency to recognize a labor organization for the purposes of collective bargaining about matters affecting the bargaining unit employees' condition of employment. The certified union also is required to represent all employees in the bargaining unit without discrimination and without regards to membership in the union, meaning that if an employee is not a member of the union, therefore doesn't pay dues for being a member, will get the same benefits that are negotiated by the union. This is the election procedure for the private sector. As you will see, is similar to the public sector. There is a petition filed to the National Labor Relations Board regional office, and there are two options: start a procedure by consent or a formal procedure, same as in the case of the public organization. In the case of consent procedures, an agreement for consent election has to be filed and demonstrate that more than 30% of the employees are agreeing to be represented by the unit. Formal procedures entail formal hearings, or in the case that is transferred to a regional board, the process requires the same steps. Once the elections are conducted by the regional director, if the results are conclusive, then the regional director issues certifications of results. If results are not conclusive, same as in the public sector, new elections are held between the parties that have achieved the highest vote. As we have mentioned, after the winning party wins the election, the unit bargaining has to be certified. This procedure entails an administrative unit determination. There has to be a community of interest. This group may have a bargaining history in the organization. They are not part of a prior union organization. They have record of efficiency in agency operations, and this unit is not promoting fragmentation of bargaining units. Supervisory and confidential employees are excluded from being part of the unit. Based on these criteria, the bargaining representative is certified. Now, there is the process of union decertification. In essence, it's a reverse process. In a bargaining unit represented by a certified union, employees may ask FRLA, or in the private, the NLRB, to revoke the certification if they become dissatisfied with the representative. To do so, they must send a petition with signed and dated statements from 30% of the bargaining unit members stating that unit employees no longer desire to be represented by the union. A petition to revoke certification cannot be filed until at least a year after the original certification date, to give the union the chance to keep up with their objectives. If a collective bargaining contract is in effect, a petition to revoke certification or a petition for certification of a new bargaining agent may only be filed during the window period between 150 and 90 days of the expiration of the contract. The purpose of this requirement is to provide the parties with an insulated period within which to try to negotiate a new agreement. Exercise 1. The theoretical part of this exercise consists in a well-written paper explaining the process of creating a bargaining unit based on the chapter 4 of the Kearney book, pages 92 to 100. Please be thorough, and there is no page limit. Also, use APA style. The practical section entails the application of the chapter's concepts in a real-life example. Simulate the creation of a labor organization in a federal agency. Choose any federal agency and file Form 21 before the Labor Relations Authority. The second part of the practical section requires you to file a charge against a labor organization before the Federal Labor Relations Authority. Let's open Form 21. Please be very thorough when you describe the reasons you are filing the petition and the issues raised by this petition. You will have to make up the name of the union, the representatives, and please fill all these cells. The instructions to fill each form are in the second page. So please pay attention to the instructions so you can excel in your exercise. The second form is to file a charge against the labor organization. Same as the first example, you have to design a labor organization, be consistent in both forms, the one that you are forming and then the one you are charging against. For the basis of the charge, you could use some unfair labor practices that we have reviewed in previous chapters. The instructions for these forms are in the second page. Well, I hope this video may clarify some concepts and assist you in completing exercise number 2. If you have any questions, please send me an email or schedule a meeting with me in my office hours. Thank you.